There are 50 UK geography facts that will actually blow your mind, and today we're counting down the 10 wildest ones you need to know. Places where the map flips your expectations and the landscape tells stories older than cities. 10. Dungeness, Britain's only desert. Yes, the UK has a desert, or at least a place so stark and dry it's often dubbed one. Dungeness is a vast shingle foreland on the Kent coast, where wind combs through ridges of rounded pebbles, and the sea hisses against a shore that seems to go on forever. It gets remarkably little rainfall, hosts hardy, low-slung plants that cling to life in the stones, and hums with a strange, cinematic energy. Fishermen's huts weathered by salt, 2 lighthouses watching the horizon, tiny steam trains of the Romney, Hythe and Dymchurch Railway threading the flats, and a looming nuclear power station that looks like sci-fi made real. Why it matters? It flips the stereotype of the UK as endlessly rainy and shows how extreme microclimates and geology can be even in a small country where longshore drift can build a whole other world from pebbles and people find beauty in the bare. 9. The Severn Bore, nature's surfing wave. On certain days, the tide rushing into the River Severn squeezes into a single rolling wall of water, sometimes up to 2 meters high, that surges upstream for miles. The funnel shape of the Bristol Channel and Severn estuary cranks the ocean's pulse into a moving ridge that thunders past muddy banks and under bridges, while crowds gather at dawn at spots like Minsterworth to watch surfers, kayakers and daredevils race the river's natural conveyor belt. Times are posted like a lunar timetable. Spring tides, new moons, full moons. When the ocean breathes in hard, the bore comes to life. Why it matters? It's a raw demonstration of tidal power, a natural clock that turns a river into a moving playground, and a clue to the renewable energy potential locked in British waters. 8. Giant's Causeway, the columns of fire. 40,000 hexagonal, and not just hexagonal, basalt columns stride into the Atlantic on the coast of Northern Ireland, a geometric staircase built by cooling lava more than 60 million years ago. Walk across this stone honeycomb and you'll see columns broken into perfect polygons, mostly 6 sides, but with pentagons, heptagons, even octagons stacked like organ pipes. Legends say a giant built it as a bridge to Scotland. Science says ancient volcanic fury cracked and cooled with such precision it looks designed. And across the sea on Staffa, Scotland, Fingal's Cave echoes with the same geology, as if the story really did span the water. Why it matters? It's geology you can touch, a UNESCO-level wonder that turns deep time into living art, and it anchors a local economy built on ore, from coastal paths to folklore. 7. Arthur's Seat, Edinburgh's ancient volcano. Looming over the Scottish capital is a 350 million-year-old extinct volcano, the crown of Holyrood Park. Hike to the top and you see castles and closes, cobbles and spires spread across a landscape sculpted by fire and then sanded by ice. The steep Salisbury crags below are a textbook in stone. James Hutton looked here in the 1700s and helped invent the idea of deep time. The glacier's passing left a crag and tail landform that shaped the Royal Mile itself. Gorse scratches your calves, wind pulls at your breath, and the city suddenly makes sense from above. Why it matters? It shows how human history stacks on deep time, how a modern capital adapted itself to an ancient lava dome and turned geology into identity. 6. Loch Ness, deeper and bigger than you thought. Forget the monster for a second. This long, narrow trench of water runs 37 kilometers through the Great Glen and plunges to around 230 meters, so deep that if you tipped the Eiffel Tower in, it would vanish beneath the surface. Dark, peaty water keeps visibility low and the chill constant, even in summer. Loch Ness holds more water than all the lakes of England and Wales combined, and it's plugged into the country by the Caledonian Canal, which threads lochs through Fort Augustus and under the shadow of ruined Urquhart Castle. Why it matters? It reframes the UK as a land of serious freshwater resources and helps explain why myths bloom in landscapes that already feel supernatural. 5. The Bristol Channel, extreme tides twice a day. Here the ocean rises and falls like a giant's breath. The Bristol Channel and Severn Estuary record the second largest tidal range on Earth, with water levels swinging up to 15 meters between low and high tide. Twice a day the sea redraws the shoreline, vast mudflats appear, salt marsh glitters, and then the water comes racing back, fueling swirling currents around islands like Flat Holm and Steep Holm. Why it matters? Extreme tides reshape coasts, challenge engineering, fuel wildlife, and hint at massive renewable energy opportunities, from tidal lagoons to barrage schemes debated for generations. 4. The Anton Dohrn Seamount, a hidden mountain taller than Ben Nevis. Beneath the Atlantic, west of Scotland in the Rockall Trough, an underwater mountain rises from depths of more than 2 kilometers to a summit still hundreds of meters below the surface. That vertical relief, greater than Ben Nevis, is an entire hidden world. Cold water coral reefs, think Lophelia pertusa building white thickets in the dark. Deep sea sponges, skates and fish cruising currents that ribbon around the summit like airborne jet streams. Named for a pioneering marine biologist, it's now recognized in conservation zones because what happens in the deep shapes life higher up the food chain. Why it matters. It proves the UK's wildest landscapes aren't only on land. Conservation, fisheries, and climate science all depend on mapping and protecting these secret summits. 3. Lincoln Cathedral, taller than the pyramids. For more than 2 centuries, this medieval masterpiece was the tallest structure on Earth. With its timber and lead central spire, Lincoln Cathedral soared past even the Great Pyramid of Giza, dominating the flat Lincolnshire fens like a ship's mast above a sea. Built stone by stone beginning in the 11th century, it was a feat of faith and engineering, until a storm in 1549 brought the spire down. Stand in the nave and your neck aches. Step outside and you understand how a skyline can guide travelers for miles. Why it matters. Geography is not only rocks and rivers, it's the built environment too, and this record breaker shows how Britain once led the world in reaching for the sky. 2. The entire UK sits north of the contiguous United States. Grab a globe and double take. The southern tip of mainland Britain, Lizard Point in Cornwall, lies around 50 degrees. The northernmost point of the lower 48 states at Minnesota's northwest angle is about 49.4 degrees. London sits level with Calgary, Edinburgh lines up with the Gulf of Alaska. And yet the UK is milder than you'd expect, green when those latitudes elsewhere freeze. Why it matters? It crushes our mental map myths and reminds us how ocean currents and wind patterns, the North Atlantic drift, prevailing westerlies, and the North Atlantic oscillation shape climate more than latitude alone. 1. Birmingham has more canals than Venice. You heard that right. Over 100 miles of waterways lace through Birmingham and the Black Country, brick-lined arteries built to move coal, iron and goods during the Industrial Revolution. Narrowboats, no wider than 7 feet, once queued at locks. Today they chug past cafes and art spaces around Gas Street Basin and Brindley Place, where towpaths have become promenades and old warehouses glow with new life. The Grand Union Canal even runs all the way to London, a slow-motion highway under the hum of motorways. Why it matters? It rewires how we picture British cities, reveals the engine room of the Industrial Revolution, and turns a supposed grey factory town into a water world hiding in plain sight. From desert-like shores to monster tides, from volcano peaks to underwater mountains, the UK is packed with surprises that connect deep time, wild nature, and human ingenuity. Which one blew your mind the most? Drop your pick in the comments, hit subscribe, and get ready for the next countdown.